Well, since we've opened just over a year ago, business has been very good. We've done over 100 events in that time and had some wonderful feedback. And the number of international and regional events has been really pleasing.
Ya, anda tadi sedang mendengar, anda baru saja mendengar kenyataan Encik Paul Darcy, iaitu Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif Borneo Convention Centre Kuching, berkenaan dengan potensi Kuching ataupun Sarawak sebagai destinasi aktiviti mesyuarat, persidangan dan juga pameran atau MICE. Ya. Ini adalah antara perkara yang akan kita bincangkan pada hari ini, iaitu potensi dan juga sektor baru yang akan memacu ekonomi Sarawak sempena dengan pilihan raya Dewan Undangan Negeri Sarawak yang ke-10 ini. Dan untuk berbincang tentang panjang lebar lagi tentang potensi Sarawak sebagai pusat aktiviti mesyuarat, persidangan dan juga pameran, bersama saya di talian menerusi Skype ialah Jill Henry, Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif Sarawak Convention Bureau. Hi Jill.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Jill, my first question is, internationally, how is Sarawak being perceived at the moment, and how should Sarawak be positioned to make sure that Sarawak will be the preferred destination for mines?
Well, Sarawak sells really well internationally. I think for clients that have been meeting in a lot of places around the world, the chance to meet in one of the world's oldest rainforests, the island of Borneo, has very appeal. So we're finding that internationally Sarawak sells very well in terms of our bidding success rate.
Now, what about, are we looking more to Malaysia, which would also include Peninsular Malaysia and also internationally? Let's look at the percentages, and what kind of growth rate can we expect in the short, medium and long term for Kuching and also Sarawak to be positioned as the preferred destination for meetings, international conferences, events, trade shows and exhibitions?
Malaysia has set itself some very ambitious targets over the next years. At the moment, we're looking at about 1.2 million arrivals each year in the MICE sector, and over the next 10 years, together with our federal colleagues, we plan to be able to more than double those arrivals. So we're looking to move from about 5% of the market of the incoming tourists to increase that up to 8% over the next 10 years. So luckily, we've got a lot of good support behind us to get out there and do that. And from across the South China, we're really hoping to be able to attract more of those events to consider coming to Kuching and Sarawak now that we have our brand new convention centre ready for operation. So as I said, we're particularly excited that the federal government have now committed such great funding support to enable us out there and bring in more conventions.
Jill, how do you ensure that there will be a great, I would say, resources, trained staff to ensure that this will be sustainable? Because there are problems elsewhere in the world where, you know, whenever there's a business flourishing, you don't have enough people to fit the system. Now, what's the situation like in Sarawak, and how do you ensure that you will always have enough trained staff to make sure that everything will be a success and it's sustainable?
We've already commenced a training program. We've been working on the development of the convention centre since 2006. There's been a lot of effort put into upskilling and training the staff. We're working very closely with UCSI University, who've been given one of the entry point projects under the ETP program to really step up the amount of training. And of course, here in Sarawak, we have Sarawak Corridor of Renewable Energy, and they have very ambitious targets for population growth. So we've also actually been going out and looking externally for those people that want to have the opportunity to come in and work with us here in Sarawak. It will be an ongoing challenge, of course, but what that means is that more and more parents need to consider letting their children develop and go into tourism, because it really is going to be a growth sector for Malaysia.
Jill, the meeting incentive conference and exhibition, oh, by the way, this is Kamaro, it has now evolved so much in the 21st century that it's not just about having a meeting or an exhibition. It's more integrated in nature. If you look at the strategy done by Singapore to keep abreast and also in front of everybody in the region, they've been going for targeted integrated tourism, which means people can come internationally for a conference, but at the same time there's world-class shopping centers, at the same time there's world-class entertainment. You know, once people are there, and companies are a little bit more stingy in allowing people to travel across the globe right now, but once they are there, they're trying to lengthen the stay of the people who attend the conferences, but at the same time giving them more value in terms of activities around to do. In this aspect, where do you think Kuching can improve and can compete? Not only maybe looking just at KL, but also across the region, beating even Singapore.
When we are promoting the conventions, you're quite right. The most important thing to cover is all of their business needs and to make sure their actual convention is a great success. But when people are travelling from the other side of the world,
yes,
it's also very important for them to do what we call technical site tours. So you'll find that they will be going to places in Sarawak like the Bakun Dam, the hydroelectric centre, going into the rural areas to look at urban drainage and what we're doing with the Rejang River and so on. And what we're targeting, of course, are those conventions that will also have a trade and development link. Mm-hmm. So we have a number of wonderful destinations just beyond Kuching. So actually, unlike a lot of other places, if delegates are just looking to stay on and enjoy the tourism attraction, they can do any number of, actually within 2 hours drive of Kuching. So we've really got all bases covered in terms of giving them the opportunity, extract the maximum amount of dollars when they do their visit.
Right.
In fact, interestingly,
yes,
people will often think it's the convention centre itself that's the main beneficiary, but they actually receive only about 10% of the delegate spend. The majority of the spend goes into accommodation, shopping, food and beverage, touring, transport. So it sort of reaches its way into all areas of the community, and that's why delegates are so valued. They're spending about 3 times more on average than the general list when it comes to a destination.
Thank you so much.
Right, thank you so much, Jill, for joining us today. Baiklah, itu tadi Jill Henry, Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif Sarawak Convention Bureau. Sebentar lagi kita akan dapatkan pula pandangan Saudara Nordin Abdullah, Pengarah Urusan Glenway Sdn Bhd yang baru-baru ini menganjurkan satu seminar yang cukup besar di Sarawak juga, dan kita akan dapatkan pandangan beliau tentang Kuching dan juga Sarawak sebagai destinasi untuk aktiviti mesyuarat, persidangan dan juga pameran. Tetapi sebelum kita berhenti rehat, ini dia saya rasa 10 pelaburan fakta tentang pelaburan langsung asing dan juga tempatan ke Sarawak dalam tahun 2011, sumber dari MITI. Perhatikan. Baiklah, kita kembali selepas ini bersama Saudara Nordin Abdullah, Pengarah Urusan Glenway Sdn Bhd.
Ahad, Astro Awani membawakan Sukan Awani Extra.
Hai, bersama saya Fazli Aziz. Antara yang mewarnai sukan tanah air minggu ini ialah rangkuman laporan utama sepanjang minggu ini.
Yang penting kita menang dengan kelebihan 2 gol
dan juga paparan khas.
Sukan Awani Extra. Ahad 11.30 malam di Astro Awani. Berikan segenap dimensi.
Rabu dalam pelana Oasis. Berkunjung dan menyingkap sejarah di Ayutthaya, Thailand.
Kota ini pernah menjadi ibu negara Thailand satu ketika dahulu.
Agama Islam tetap teguh diamalkan oleh rakyatnya hingga kini. Musafir, Rabu 7.30 malam di ASTRO Oasis, Inspirasi Sanubari.
Perjalanan yang mengundang 1000 makna April ini.
I'm going back to find out the truth.
Nama tujuh nak kita udah tu.
Sejarah hidupnya terungkai di bumi kenyalang. Sebuah super telemovie asli yang terulung, Uri. Hanya di Astro Box Office Movies tayangan hebat. Every Monday, entrepreneur gets underneath the skin of successful entrepreneur to find out the traits or characteristics that got him or her to where he or she is today.
What I learned the most is that there is no overnight success. In any business, you got to do it step by step.
If you're passionate about something, you make it work. If you're not, it's just a job.
I think you need to develop yourself personally to understand your own capabilities.
Find out if you have what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Every Monday, 9:30 p.m. only on ASTRO Awani.
Baiklah, kita teruskan perbincangan kita tentang potensi dan juga sektor baru yang akan memacu ekonomi Sarawak, dan sektor pilihan kita pada petang ini ialah aktiviti mesyuarat persidangan dan juga pameran ataupun MICE. Dan bersama kita di talian adalah saudara Nordin Abdullah, pengarah urusan Glen Ray Sdn Bhd, sebuah syarikat yang banyak menganjurkan mesyuarat persidangan dan juga pameran. Hello Nordin.
Hello, hi.
Hi, Nordin. Okay, my question to you is, recently you organized the Tomorrow's Leaders Summit in Kuching. Now, we had really many bright people there. And what do you think would be the major challenges that Sarawak would have to face in order to accommodate thinking people and people who would want to stay there in Kuching to contribute? Yeah, you're talking about knowledge workers. So what will be the next challenges for Sarawak in the next 5 years?
I think some of the biggest challenges will be the accommodation. And I think this is one of the things that will actually start to drive the investments, because often you can have a big conference and there's a need for more hotel rooms. But I think there's more and more hotels coming up in the last few years, and there's a few more hotels coming up in the next few years. So I think that's going to be very helpful. But in terms of actual knowledge workers, I think it's a very good opportunity to work in Sarawak. We saw during the summit the Nobel laureate, Professor Douglas Asheroff. In fact, we were able to get him to come to the summit because it was in Sarawak. He'd been to KL before, he'd been to many of the big cities, but he wanted to experience what was going on the ground in Sarawak for himself. Because he'd read about it, he'd seen it on National Geographic, but there's nothing like being there.
Yeah. Nordin, can you paint us a picture of the right ecosystem for knowledge people to converge, not just for conferences or just or trade exhibitions, but at the end of the day, this is the place which is the perfect place for the exchange of minds, for example?
I think the most important thing is the ability to speak to each other and the ability to communicate. Knowledge workers like to share. Knowledge workers like to speak their minds. So when you're in an environment like that, that makes it the easiest way to have these exchanges of knowledge. The other is to have different institutions in the state which are there, and there are a few international universities now in the state, which are actually very helpful for the for those things to take place.